Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning, Nick?
I'm on mute. I apologize. I'm good.
Have you recovered from yesterday?
Yeah, I took during Jesse's talk, I kind of laid down and just had my headphones in and I was listening. But I took a little nap in between. So I got a little bit of rest.
Yeah, I ended up almost like having to fight a migraine after staring at screens and lights. And so if I'm a little dim today, it's because I'm trying to adjust the lighting. So I'm not, and I don't wear my glasses often because they're too scratched. Sometimes that bothers me because I wear them for prisms, but they have the blue light filtering to them. So I stuck them on today. So I'm going to see if that helps. But yeah, it was kind of silly. I think at one point people thought we could have people, switch in and out, but with the recordings, it just makes it kind of goofy. So, Sherry was able to get me the one she did or they did yesterday, but
yeah, I think
that doesn't always work. So
yeah, maybe in the future, I think the workshops were a good idea, but I don't know if we we plan on doing a virtual thing in the future, but I found that like more than 3 hours a day is like already too much.
Yeah, I totally agree. I fully agree. I told you about that webinar I took, but
yeah. And then
yeah, even if we had people switching out, I just don't think any more than that's a good plan. So nope. Oh, what were you gonna say?
Oh, just yeah, I think in the future, just keeping that in mind, but then also I don't know if we're gonna do a physical retreat next year. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's like the Delta variant. Now there's the Lambda variant. I don't know if you heard about that one.
I saw it, but I couldn't tell if it was a joke or not.
Yeah,
And I didn't look it up.
It's not a joke. But it's like they're not sure whether or not it's like a virus of concern or a variant of concern yet. It is technically more deadly, but they don't know about the transmission rates quite yet.
Lovely.
But, anyways, so next year we do a physical retreat. I think it's like also important to maybe even consider not even going beyond like 3 p.m. You know, like I think there's only so much you can do with writing. The retreat in the past has been different because it's like it's a little bit more free flowing, you know, and
I agree.
the conversations actually happen outside of the workshops.
Yeah.
And there isn't really a space for that. And I mean, that's just the reality. It's not a criticism.
Yeah, I agree.
There's just not a space for that in the virtual format.
Mhm.
You just can have that kind of like candid conversation.
Yep. Yeah, I think at some point this month we should have like a, debriefing or, that kind of a thing, and we can just go over all these things, and especially as we don't know for sure what next year will look like. So, and it might be one of these deals where it's like a hybrid thing, so that people can not travel or stay home if they're high risk, and, just pop into some of it, or so, yeah, it's all. But it's always good to have all that information about things. Yeah, it's amazing how much we went over yesterday. Like, I was going through those videos and like, I'm gonna have to watch all of these over again. Joe's decolonizing our stories, a person could watch that and then sit with it for like a week and, and then take notes and, just.
Are those going to just be private recordings?
Yeah, we need to talk about that. So the plan is all these interior things will be in the portal available to people who are here and then our members, which is where like, I think further editing some of the conversation out later will be good, but it takes too long for YouTube to do the processing. So I don't, except for some of my own recording goofy stuff at the beginning, maybe. I don't know how much I'm going to edit as we keep going today and tomorrow. But then like Monday, I'll go through and cut those down more. But I definitely think, with his permission, like that decolonizing our stories, if we clean that up more, maybe just the presentation. I don't know, though the Q&A's got some good stuff, but I wonder if he'd let us make that public, because that is information, all our communities should have, if he's comfortable with that, What do you think?
Yeah, I think it should just be an internal resource, to be honest, because it is like, it's proprietary knowledge, I think, and
well, that's why I said only if he wanted it to be.
Yeah. I think like we should try to create some kind of internal, channel or something like that, because I would love to watch it again, because
well, it'll stay on the webpage. This portal, it'll be there. Like, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so I'll probably watch it again, but no, I really appreciated it. I think if there's a way to, feature it like more prominently when in our like Oak Lake, you know, writing workshops. We can do that. We can use it as a resource. Like if we do another publishing event, like internally, you know, we can just use that as like, hey, you know, Joe Marshall did this really great presentation, and you know, it's useful in how to like, you know, build your proposal or whatever it is, or how do you find a publisher. I think like the other aspect of it is thinking about this is like simultaneously like a professional organization as well as a writing organization, and so like we are trying to professionalize, and it's not that like we should definitely have community engagement, and there are like, you know, we do open events and everything, and that's really great. But there are some like just kind of, you know, nuts and bolts, meat and potato, like writing things that it's not like privileged information, but it's meant for the writers and the people who are part of this workshop, you know, to really kind of emphasize that. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, I totally agree with the workshops. I don't think we should make those public. I was talking about is decolonizing our stories.
oh yeah,
That first morning session he did, I was screencasting it as I had finished it up and put it on the portal so that my husband and I want my daughter just to hear, you know, and I was just kind of reviewing it and get me kind of fired up this morning. And as I was still doing some of my other video stuff, and I was just sitting there thinking, there's chunks of that if he gave us permission, we could put on YouTube and on our public YouTube. But yeah, no, the rest of it I think really does need to stay within the society for sure. Yeah, I agree. But it doesn't mean we can't have conversations, like have a, you know, coffee hour where we say, hey, did you watch this? Let's review this workshop and talk about it, you know. Good morning, Jamie. Good morning, Tokala. Good morning, Nick. Sorry, I'm talking shop.
Oh, I was interested. I really was, Tokala and I had a chance to talk yesterday, debrief about some of the sessions, and we were chatting a little bit about that session on decolonizing. And one of the things we talked about is, you know, as both of us have worked in mental health, and we know that when people are trying to get rid of that stuff, you know, whatever it is that you're carrying, you have to kind of replace it with something else. So it's more than just about decolonizing. It's really about what are you going to replace it with? It's like almost, so we've been kind of using this term re-indigenizing, because it's like you have to shed that stuff, but there's got to be something to fill it, you know, for the future. So anyway, we kind of talked a little bit about that. I thought it was just a fascinating conversation, and there were so many levels.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think personally, like, and I know what he's talking about when he talks about like enculturation and being careful with that. But like for me and with my family background and life experience, I don't think it's worth throwing anything out until you know why and what you would replace it with. Like until you're given, you know, the opportunity or a gift or a remembering of some sort of the way it would have been done, or the way, or whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, whatever. Like until you have that, I don't think it's healthy to just, chip away at yourself. That's a really strong point. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing that, and for your and Claude's work on that.
Woo.
Hey, Nick, you got words this morning.
A little bit. Just figured since, a little rollover from yesterday. And I'm in here doing the perimeter of primer as well during the coffee break. So I have my coffee, and I'm just getting the outline of primer on this lime green wall so it can become a little less garish.
Which house is it? Is it your dad's? Or is
This is the house I'm buying from my dad. Yeah. Because, you know, sometimes your brother gets high on meth and punches a bunch of holes in the wall. So fix everything. Yeah.
For everyone listening, Nick and I are like fourth cousins. We're both Livermonts, Rooks Livermonts. So, yeah, anyway, so we both have major house projects and things we've been working on, and he just moved back home. So he's got a lot of mending and repairing and rebuilding literally and physically to do. So we've been having discussions on, I fell down a feng shui hole the other day. And so I was telling him about, you know, all these thoughts from different Eastern cultures about which way your door should face. And so that led to me to remember which way our doors faced. And I'm like, you know what we need? We need like the Lakota version of feng shui. I'm very interested in the ways our domestic lives were colonized and criminalized. I mean, it's like it covers pretty much everything. And so anyway, I was like, I think we need to work on that, and I need to write something.
Well, there's like down here in the Southwest, like the Pueblo and Navajo people still like still have a lot of their kind of architectural designs, and you know, like they don't live in, well, Pueblos live in square homes, but Navajos have like Hopi, or excuse me, not Hopis, Hogans that they live in, and there's a whole like protocol about how one enters, which way they face, even death in a Hogan, and you know how like the opening, like the, you know, because the fire's in the center, there's like a, you know, there's a whole like even just daily practice of like how one you know, enters, where one sleeps, you know, where like you put your, you know, all your stuff and everything. So it's it is, and I think like Craig was doing this a little bit in his work.
He has done a little bit. And
yeah.
then, you know, I have this goofy thing where when I was in college and I was married, having kids, I mean, I did all the things all at once, but we moved out to Spearfish, and I was hired to do cultural interpretation for Kevin Costner. And it was such a strange experience, but, you know, they pulled professors, and then I got to work with some really neat, you know, like traditional people of my generation. And then I had like my Meek's cousin, you know, people. So I'd be like in the teepee encampment. And one of them was literally like one of my cousins riding horseback, and they were like rodeo, like Indian cowboys doing rodeo circuits. And then when they weren't doing that, they were working there. And so I had this experience of actually getting to be like in this home space, domestic space with male relatives, you know, and I always felt safer when they could see me, because here I was out there by myself with all these tourists, you know. You know, like that really, to be able to be in that like physical sort of thing, it really made me think a lot about that. And I'm very interested in like KonMari, and but like one of the things that I learned and then, you know, would teach the tourists was how our art was so functional. And it was really like art, you know, how our parfleches worked, how the storage worked. And you see this in water lily and various things. And it doesn't mean we always have to go back to it. But for example, like we had those caches, you know, that we dig. And I've been thinking, I have some kids, some of my kids have sleep in the basement. There's bedrooms downstairs, and they really don't like to. And I was thinking, well, you know, back in the day, we never would have lived underground. There was very specific purposes if we were in a hole in the ground. Caches would have been one. I think the eagle, people with the gift of eagle catching, I think they would have been another one. But like we didn't do that. Even the experience of Inipi is not dug into the ground, you know. So yeah, I think there's a lot we could be doing with that. And then, but at the same time, what scares me, because when I did Sustainable Dakota, my stuff was so taken over by wannabes, hobbyists in Germany, like, and I didn't have really the maturity at the time to figure out how to, I was so like trying not to put anything I shouldn't out, just trying to figure all of that out. And then even amongst, because, you know, I try to be very careful around my traditional relatives that I don't I don't create any violence from Christianity, that I hardly say anything and about anything spiritual. I mean, we aren't supposed to anyway. Oak Lakers are, we've had that drilled into us too, but nothing too much, right? Well, even the little bit I had shared, I had this white guy pulling together words and trying to recreate ceremonies just based on what I said, just this Facebook friend of mine, and it's so it's really, I don't know, I struggle with that, like how, and I said nothing, like, and then he was really, really mad at me one day about something, and then it all came out, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, that's true, Jamie. Sorry, Nick, we've already kind of half started, I guess. I'm just like sitting here blathering. Hi, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is that porcupine quill?
Yeah, friend of mine did that years ago. He was practicing. He was learning how to do this from his mother-in-law, Alice Newholy. So he said, I finished this here, and he gave it to me.
It's my favorite, you know that? I mean, not the beadwork isn't beautiful, but it really is my favorite.
Yeah.
There's just a feeling about it or something.
Yeah, I have a a good story about quills. My Annabelle One Star. She had a quilling class that was ages ago, ages and ages. So I took a quilling class from her. Probably in the, geez, that was a long time ago. But we were learning all the basics and all that, and she said, "Well, let me tell you a story about these quills, how I got them." So we were all sitting there, and a bunch of us had quills in our mouths, softening them up. And she said, at Centeglisca, they asked me, "What do you need for your class?" And she said, "Well, could get me a porcupine." So she said, about 2 weeks before the class started, she said she got a call and they said, "We have your porcupine down here." So she drove down to Rosebud and went into college, and used to be in those old buildings down there. They have those register heaters that's good. I think they're called registers. And she said, "Where's my porcupine?" And they said, "It's over there in that box." So they had a box sitting, and this was during the winter, and they had a box sitting by the heater, and the porcupine was in there. She said, "How long has it been in there?" And they said, "Oh, about 2 days. It should be all right." So she was afraid to pick it up, and so she picked it up, and she said it was okay. And I brought it back and got home, and I thought, well, I should start pulling these quills. And so I sat down at the kitchen table and start pulling quills. And she said, "I was there most of the afternoon." And I looked up, and here it was time to fix supper. She said, "I always fix supper for Lloyd, make sure when he got home, he had supper." So she said, so I stood up and I grabbed the box and picked it up, and here that whole porcupine tore apart. I mean, and she said there's guts just all over the kitchen. She said, I started gagging and I couldn't breathe, and I looked around and there was a rag laying on the floor. So I grabbed the rag and stuffed it on my face and took a deep breath, and here it was full of cat pee. And she said, she said, so I thought, I better do this. And she drug it out in the porch and cleaned up. And she fixed supper and she was sitting there. She said, I was still really sick. And I was sitting there on the kitchen table, had my head down. She said, Lloyd walked in, looked at me and said, what the hell's wrong with you? She said, so I told him about my porcupine. So we all grabbed the quills and took them off our mouth. Oh, shoot. I like that.
That's what you call a Monday.
Yes. So that was, geez, when was that? Late 70s? Yeah, I think it was the late 70s. So I learned how to quilt from her, but I never did follow through and learned. We did beading and quilling the same class. I don't remember what we quilled. I think we all gave them away at the end of it. That was ages ago. So what are we talking about?
Tasha, are you leading this?
I thought you were.
No, you signed
Oh,
up for today.
okay. All right. Well, that I'm still thinking about the porcupine. So I think Nick is we're going to go back over the writing prompts that he did. So I apologize for the confusion. I did want to share with everyone. I think a lot of us, actually probably more of the people who aren't here this morning, we just want to make sure that folks are having the ability to not just kind of get sucked into our virtual space here, but we wanted to share a little bit about what it was like in previous years with the Oak Lake Writers Retreat and the Oak Lake Field Station, which is what it's known as now. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about Oak Lake. And I'm not sure what happened to, I have some papers here and there, but I might not even have it anymore. Oak Lake's a pretty special place to me. And one morning when we were still working on Haisapa, so the Oak Lake Field Station, sort of a mid-century camp that was set up, I think, originally for Girl Scouts. And that's the white history of it. The area around Oak Lake is also known to have other historical experiences by our relatives. And so various people over the years have commented on that. And anyway, it's just a really unique area. And I don't know that I'm qualified to share some of those stories. Gabby, who maybe will join us at some point, she is one. And then also Eldon Lawrence, who has passed away now. He was a wealth of information about the area as well. Yeah, as Nick says, Oak Lake Field Station is part of the large land grant gifted to SDSU, taken from the Dakota Oyate. And that's absolutely correct. The lands here actually were affected by the Traverse des Sioux Treaty. And so it definitely has the Dakota history to it. People think it's more in Minnesota, but actually Eastern South Dakota is absolutely part of it and what became South Dakota. So we knew that we had, as Ella Deloria said, we are not afraid, we have relatives. And so that was our experience at Oak Lake. There was some spooky stuff too, but more than anything, I woke up early one morning and got up and wrote this piece. And I remember I called it They, and I just said, they're waiting. And because, like I said, we'd been working on HESAPA for a little while, and we really needed to start bringing it together. And after I shared that poem, just during a coffee, like the breakfast session or whatever, Eldon visited with me outside, and he said, do you know the history of this place? And I'm like, well, kind of, but you tell me. And so there had been a group of travelers who had been killed by soldiers not far off of our people. There's other, I believe, historical story, or not historical, but can't think of the right word that Liz would say. Some of our stories are not far off from Oak Lake as well. And so it's an important place. And so it's going to be fortunate, I believe. What we're hoping to do is that we can move the retreat into the communities, because unfortunately, I feel like Oak Lake has been kind of siloed over the years within the academic sector, and it started with academics, which, I mean, we love our academics. No offense, Nick. But a lot of our writers are community people, and including within Oak Lake, we run the gambit. And so, but our ability to get our work back out into our own communities, though, I think hasn't always happened the way it could have, or maybe now is the right time for it. Maybe that's all it is. And so even though I'm really excited about maybe having the retreats in our various home communities, like I said, Oak Lake is still kind of a special place. And that's why we've kept, even though it's the Washichu word for it, it is why we've kept the Oak Lake name as part of the Oak Lake Writers Society. I feel that we were, many of us feel that we were, I guess, what would the word be? Mentored just as much by the place and our relatives, human and non-human, and our spiritual relatives, just as much as the humans that we've had over the years who have come and visited with us. I'm just going to show you the Oak Lake Field Station Facebook page. So we can use technology as well. So Oak Lake is kind of interesting. It's almost to the border of Minnesota, past what's called White, South Dakota. Can't make that up. And that's actually Chuck Woodard's hometown. So he has some really good, funny stories about White, South Dakota. And you come in on this gravel road, and here's the lake over to the right. And then across the lake, when you look, there's actually a farm. But if you can see where the field station is, so this is the field station. And then we were able to, the slope right behind it, and there's lead plant growing all over through here. Up here this would be this photo sort of like, it's facing more southwest than straight west, but up here is some of the best past flowers that you can find. They had open door showers. That was kind of one of my favorite things. The bathrooms inside often had bugs and didn't have showers, just like bathtubs. And you go out there and, have an open door. I hope I'm not, I don't want to like freak out any of our people here, but, it'd be raining and you could take a hot shower. It's just a really cool experience. As drones have become more popular, it got me a little nervous. Like I felt pretty safe out there, but then I'm like, I don't know if it flies a drone over here, or Google Maps or something. Yikes. But anyway, as you can see, they've been doing some controlled burns. That this is like the classroom house down here where biologists hang out. And Jamie, you'll appreciate this. There was a Cherokee biologist, and kind of joke at actual Cherokee, who came, and she was a biologist, and she would sit in with us at Oak Lake. And anyway, she teaches down now in Texas, but she was looking at organisms in water and studying that. So anyway, you can kind of see just what the station looks like. This is really interesting. They've been doing these experimental burns. As you know, our people used fire as well. So I actually threw a comment to that effect on here. And then they have this wildlife camera. So you can kind of, if sometimes being in a different environment helps you open up your senses, because we just become kind of numb to the things that are around us. And so no matter where you are, here's a fawn playing. So, I just would encourage you to use, this Washichu space, or this place that they're doing all these things at, but make it work for yourself and your writing. Like I said, it's just it is a very special space. And yeah, here's a river otter. They actually have otters at Oak Lake. And just kind of a reminder to all the other retreats, Nick and I were talking about this right at the beginning, is, if we became overwhelmed, or we would have time built in and we would go, walk, some, have stories around a campfire inside the years that this was held in the fall. So there's just to give this to you as a resource, not because, we owe Oak Lake or SDSU anything, or, anything weird like that. It's just, this place has been our relative and our host for quite a while. And it did have drawbacks. That field station, it is difficult for some of our elders to be comfortable in. If you have there's no air conditioning, so we would have to go sit in restaurants. And so if you had health issues, there was issues, I think that's fair to say, Nick and Chris, don't you think? So, there is that too, but I just wanted to share that with everyone. And that's why I sent out the notebooks. If you've all received packages, I actually got the waterproof pages, not because I thought it'd rain, but in case you stick it in a pocket and you get sweaty or something like that, it's not going to ruin it. So just to remind ourselves, our elders have reminded us throughout the years that culture-based writing is land-based writing. And so I just wanted to invite you, short of being able to go and gather. That's one of the reasons I sent the Lakota Made is a company in Mankato. So those are all things that they've gathered. The tea and the honey is all local to that area of Minnesota. And so, yeah. Any other questions or anything like that?
Just thought it was pretty great. I almost bought one of those notebooks at Ace when I was buying paint for this project yesterday. So it was great to open up the box and see the notepad waiting for me.
Thank you. And what's kind of funny though, some of those you can get in Lowe's, but there's this brand that's all about like fight Mother Nature. And like, it took me a while to like find a brand and they're still very like aggressively army, like, tactical, whatever. But at least this brand wasn't all about like circumventing Mother Nature or something. So anyway, thank you. I'm glad. Hopefully it'll be a good tool for you. I think that's all I had, Nick. Oh, I will say though, with the packages, some of you receive books you may already have. And so those books are meant to bolster your personal library. Maybe one can be a lending copy. So if you don't get it back, it's not the worst thing in the world. Or giveaways. Wouldn't it be great if we were incorporating our books in our giveaways? So I hope we can continue to do that. Those were a lot of books that where we got donations and some of them are newer books that just came out. So I hope you enjoy those, but you don't have to have them read for the retreat. There's a little confusion on that.
Yeah, I don't really have much to offer other than just to say, Oak Lake was a good place. I mean, there were issues with it. The physical, requirements, being exposed to the elements was one thing. Some people actually camped there too. They would, you could just set up a tent. But I think for me, the larger question was always like, I never knew that was land grant land. That's being used by the university. And there's a really amazing report that came out of High Country News called Land Grant University or Land Grab University. And it documents all of the it's not even a good name, it's the land thefts that were carved out of treaty territories, not just in Dakota or Chenty-Shakoin treaty territory, but all over. And how seemingly private institutions, because this was a public land grant, or this was a public university policy that was created in 1862 alongside of the Homestead Act. But private colleges like Ivy League institutions such as Cornell actually benefited greatly from it. And in fact, Cornell owns or used to own a lot of land from the Dakota Treaty territory that was usurped during the 1862 war. And not to get too political about all of that stuff, but SDSU it plays a role in that, and can to this day literally profits from that dispossession. And there's no plan to actually give the land back, even though they know that it's ill-gotten. And the University of Minnesota as well has a lot of that land. So these are things to think about. I think in terms of, especially in terms of the larger conversation about land back and reparations, if that's a viable alternative, because currently neither SDSU nor University of Minnesota offer any kind of scholarships for Dakota students whose land they've literally dispossessed and profited. We're talking billions of dollars. We're not talking just like chump change. We're talking billions of dollars that have created not only the wealth of this country, but also the kind of technical expertise of this country, training engineers, training teachers, training professional managers, CEOs, those things. Like, they've all benefited from the theft of native land. And I think that's something to consider. And I know SDSU got really upset at me when I brought this up to them when they came out to the field station, as if I was attacking them. I was just asking questions based on fact.
Well, that's because SDSU President Barry Dunn is become a champion of telling land grant universities they need to give money to students, and
Sure.
being the star of doing all the things for all the tribal people.
Sure.
And so, but yet even with this new Wakini initiative, we should, as Luther Standing Bear said, with all the gold that they extracted, we should have always been able to send our kids to college and never have paid for any of it. This shouldn't even be a discussion that, and even the University of Minnesota Morris, that used to be a boarding school, that's only tuition waiver. That does not cover books and room and board and all of the other things that go into it. And if I have a college student, most of the costs, it's all that, because they have to be there for so many years on campus. So yeah. And then the other thing too, is I think the literal gatekeeping, even somebody like me who's been out to Oak Lake so many times, I still could not go back out there without an escort from staff to just take pictures and get ready for the retreat. And, I definitely, and, I have been there longer than a lot of these newer staffers. And so I find that a little bit interesting. Also, I would say SDSU has sold off various properties, important properties. And, there's that joke about, the Indian guy standing in like Lowe's or Home Depot or somewhere, and getting a bag of potting soil and somebody's like, oh, you're going to do gardening. And he's like, I'm buying my land back one bag at a time, you know? And sometimes I think that's almost what it's going to have to take. I would love to somehow fundraise and, you know, take over the management of Oak Lake someday. I think that would be great. Not that the biologists still can't come out there, but, you know, because also we always paid for our presence there. You know, that was part of the SDSU fundraising. They paid their own, you know, they shifted money around in there for us to be there. So.
And, you know, just to change the subject a little bit, we have talked about, you know, future spaces. Several alternatives that have been proposed is, you know, doing kind of like a circular or a circuit, I guess, of hosting it in various places. Kim Tallbear, who is sort of an inactive member, but was active, you know, at least a decade ago, suggested holding it up in a place like Winnipeg, which is still part of Dakota.
We've seen her
territory.
this spring. She's popped
Okay.
into things.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, she's just, yeah, but she is very busy. I agree, we need to go, you know, move around, but it would be nice to still have, you know, sort of a base but it is so rustic. You know, I think we need to vary our events too, maybe, I don't know. But I agree, it'd be good to.
Maybe with my new job at Minnesota, I can tell them, I can, you know, really harp on their white guilt and just tell them to give us a building.
Oh yeah, we got all kinds of fundraising to do.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
I'll post that article if you all want to check it out. There's a map, there's an interactive map too with the land grants, and you can look in each state. And you can see how much money each university is pulling in.
And I really think this is at the root of, you know, we have a strained relationship, I think, with SDSU. And I really think it comes down to sovereignty. And I really think people know deep down that these things are really shady, you know, that what happened. And then to continue to keep acting like they're doing us the favors is just really insulting and tiresome. And I think deep down they know it. You know, you're joking, but it's about white guilt. But, you know, yeah, wouldn't it be great if they really just freaking got a clue? Truly.
Yeah, according to this map, SDSU has properties in treaty territory.
Oh yeah.
In
You want to share the screen? Might as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
This is the stuff we talk about at Oak Lake, everyone. Welcome.
Can you enable my screen sharing?
Oh yeah, sorry.
So I just went to this, where's it at? Oh, right here. So I just went to this, and you know, you can pick a state. So I just clicked on South Dakota, and there's only one land grant university in South Dakota, even though USD does benefit from some of the land grants. They weren't founded as a land grant institute. So this is only the universities that are founded as a land grant institute. It doesn't include all the universities who benefit from land grants. That's an important distinction to make. But you can see, you know, SDSU is here on the eastern side of the state. They've raised so the grant acres is 159,832. The university raised over $500,000 from that, which is 107 times the return on the so-called investment in these properties. And to put that into perspective, I guess, like, I'm thinking of, like, that's larger than Flandreau, that's larger than Lower Brule, that's larger than my reservation, right? This university has more land than my entire nation. Ted Turner, to kind of put it into perspective, Ted Turner actually owns about 200,000 acres of treaty territory in the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty in western part of South Dakota. Let's see what Minnesota owns. So this one is, let's see, University of Minnesota. Wow, they don't have very much. So it looks like SDSU has more. But if you check out New York, and I think it's it'll come up as Cornell. Yeah, Cornell. So look at how much land Cornell is invested in, and their land is invested in parts of western Minnesota, part of that treaty territory that was usurped after the US Dakota War. But Cornell's an Ivy League, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even private universities benefited from this public land policy.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any in Massachusetts. Is that Harvard? Oh no, it's MIT. So yeah, it looks like MIT has land in Minnesota as well. Wow.
Is that 2 in Massachusetts? Almost looks
Yeah,
like
there's 2. There's MIT and University of Massachusetts.
That's more acreage too than
Yeah.
all over.
So some of these universities have land bases, or had, I should say, because a lot of this land has been sold off. Land bases larger than most tribes.
I just think if they have the ability to sell it, they have the ability to give it back.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I think that's what we need to like focus on. So there's the historical gardens here where they developed a certain type of grape. Hansen, I think Hansen was the horticulturist that this garden was started, named for, or whatever. And I've heard that they're going to be auctioning off this historic. I mean, there's plant people worried that this heritage stuff is going to get lost, and I just thought, you know.
Nick, who made this website? It's really good.
This journalist, Tristan Atone, he's Kiowa. And then this other guy, I can't remember his name. He's a white guy, but he's studying and he lives in London. But I guess let's click on, let's see, universities. Let's try nations. So yeah, they kind of created like a little treaty map. I don't know how to zoom in on this thing. Oh, here it is. So let's try this. Oh, this is just I guess this is just the treaty stuff. But this treaty right here, or the session right here, this is where a lot of those land grants come from.
I think that's the Traverse des Sioux one.
Yeah.
Because the one that affects that river right there is a different one. That goes up towards Sisseton. It's a different one, I think.
But I think this, and future fundraising efforts, for Oak Lake, and others, you can really go to these universities, I think, and, you know, they should have some kind of land tax or something.
Absolutely.
They do that here locally. They have it's called honor native land tax, and they support local like Tiwa and Tewa organizations. We have a group of Tewa women who organize, and they get a land tax from some organizations. It's about like $4,300 a month, which is quite a bit. You can like open a center. That's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to open a women's center for Native women. But if that, I mean, just think about all these businesses, the universities who are operating, you know, in these spaces, and you know, they deserve to pay back what they've taken, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Indigenous land granted in, let's see, South Dakota. Oh yeah, so this looks like all the land that universities still own, it looks like. Where's oh, here we go.
A tiny little dot I bet up there is Oak Lake.
Yeah, this is the field station.
Yeah.
See land parcel page. What does that do? Oh, so it shows you,
All the overlap.
yeah. So that's
That's cool.
that's the Oak Lake field station right there.
Mhm.
And that is Oak Lake.
Yep. So we don't actually, Oak Lake isn't even part of the field station technically, but
That's pretty wild.
yeah, Hendricks. I always forget what that town's called. That's that town we'd go to the cafe and hide out, and that they did our catering, I think. Isn't it that one, or was it Astoria that did our catering, Sarah?
Astoria.
Or was it Astoria? Okay. Well, there is the Hendricks Cafe though.
And there's White.
Yep.
I remember the first year I went to South Dakota State University when I just got out of high school. In North Dakota, there's I think it's close to North Dakota State or University of North Dakota, is a town called Zap. And every year they have a big party over there, and it's a little bitty town that just sells beer mostly. So everybody would go there, and it was a whole weekend, the whole university, even all the, like the student council and everything would go there. And they'd call it Zip to Zap weekend. And they'd hold all kind of stuff over there. And so that year I was at, South Dakota State, they started a Whip to White. They said there was 2 bars that sold off sale beer, and they said they would stock up, and by Sunday they'd be sold out. I can't remember. Didn't somebody say all those white people? Remember one retreat, somebody said that. Something about all those white people.
Right, so let's look at SDSU's land and try to find the next place we want to go. Let's see. Oh wow, they own stuff out by Crow Creek. Highmore, yeah, this is Crow Creek land over here. There's some land by Cheyenne River. Some Standing Rock land up here. Wow.
So where are we thinking of the retreat for next year? Hopefully it's in person. Because I know Kim did mention Canada, but I kind of think that'll take a couple years. And it might be good for our 30th anniversary. That'll be in 2 years.
Wow, they got land in the Black Hills. Just saying.
All right, I was talking to my husband. Is that SDSU again? It's in the Black Hills,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's out by Buffalo Gap. There's hot springs. It's like they got field stations out here too.
Oh yeah, because they have a forestry program, so that would. And you know, those programs, especially, you know, down to the program level, those, you know, if our students want to go learn something about that, again, that it should not, they should not be having to pay for it. I think
Sarah?
western side of the state would be good for next year, to answer Sarah's question. What do other people think?
I think wherever we go, we're always going to be Oak Lake Riders.
I agree. And it might be nice to hold, you know, it's so beastly hot, like autumn, just like an autumn weekend thing at the field station. You know, I'd even thought of that.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
it wasn't the
yeah.
regular retreat, but you know,
Up in the Black Hills, you know, no matter how hot it gets, like in Rapid City, up in the
Mhm.
Black Hills, it's always cool. I was trying to remember that one. Of the first one that I attended is when they did, I don't know if it was Eldon Lawrence or somebody else, because everybody was talking about all of these things that they heard, and so they asked him, and so they sometime before that retreat, they had a ceremony there, and it was really interesting. And it was, they said it was a lot of our relatives from that 1862 were hiding out there, and they came and killed a bunch of them, or all of them. But SDSU still uses that station.
yeah, they do. So they have biology type classrooms out there. And it's kind of picked up pace. It was kind of, I think, a little more neglected, but it seems like they're getting busier, which I don't know, that's a horrible thing, but
Is it heated?
I think you see some heaters, but I don't think they do anything much. But I know there's the big fireplace, and I feel like there were registers out there in the bunk rooms. People have stayed there in the fall, so.
Yeah, they're probably just having classes out there so they don't have to give it up.
Well, they have more staffing out there now too. So that's, like I said, that prescribed burn, they're trying different things, so. I don't know. It's interesting. They have a new caretaker out there, I think. And new, because they changed the departments around, didn't they, Sarah? And so there's a new,
I think the person retired, and so now there's a new.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would Winnipeg be too out of the picture for y'all?
I'd like to.
Since we now have Lisa.
I've never been to Canada, so I'd like to go there.
No, me neither.
I don't know that we can do the fundraising in 1 year for it, is my only thing. I think like what Sarah said, in 2 years to be
Well,
planning.
Kim said that she has money that she could help with.
But I
to
mean,
put
like,
together.
we gave people gas stipends just to get to Oak Lake. I feel like we should, you know, I guess I always see the retreat as being like a scholarship based. You know, I don't want people to feel like they have to try to pay or come up with the money. You know what I mean? Like, because, you know, as not a good job as we've been getting out into the communities, we still have a lot of community people coming into Oak Lake at the very least. So, and just supporting that. I mean, people,
Well, you could say the same about Canada. I mean, it's not that all the community people could just come from the States. I mean, we'd be reaching out to community people up there as well. So it also begs the question too for Lisa, who's in Canada. Are we going to provide travel stipends for her to come over this way? Or are we fundraising for that? So I think
her
I'm not
address
trying
is
to,
in
like-
the US right at the moment.
Oh,
but-
it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, I'm just saying though, it's like, and not, I understand where you're coming from, but you can make the same argument from the other side. So I would just say that we shouldn't put it out of the picture just based on those kind of logistics, but we should consider it, especially if Kim did offer to help fundraise on that side. I think it's important to remember that the Canadian university system has way more funding for these kinds of things than the US system. So, and she's in a good position at University of Alberta to do something like that.
I also think it depends on if we have someone to coordinate it. I mean, I don't know about you, Tashi, but I'm exhausted after this retreat, like coordinating it internationally, right? Even though it's just Canada, that's still like a huge responsibility.
I think we would have to have somebody that could help us coordinate the Canadian logistics part of it. And as for me, it is cost for me. Like, you know, there's a lot of little nitpicky costs when you're, you know, doing this type of thing, and I can't pay those things. So once Oak Lake's a 501c3 and, you know, there's money to be, you know, if we have the ways of getting things paid, but, you know, even just little things like, it's just like little things too. So I'm not so sure. Yeah, and I would probably definitely, if it was that big a project for Canada, I absolutely have to be paid to do it. So probably even beyond if my position is funded for next year, frankly, because it would be at least another part-time job on top of being director and fundraising for the regular stuff. I mean,
So I do presentations at that TSWECHA conference that Mike Carlo does. And 1 year, one whole, I don't know, a village, I don't know what they call them up there, but they came to TSWECHA looking for relatives. I mean, all of them. And they all invited, if anybody wanted to come up, they would help house them, feed them, you know. They said, it's just up to you to get up here. And of course,
yeah, and that's a good, I mean, when you say it like that, that would be, we could get a bus then. You know, we could have buses, make the circuit, you know, get on the bus and, you know, do it that way too. But I imagine, we need passports to go there, don't we? So maybe, do people have money for the fees and all that to do that?
tribal IDs work in Canada. If you have a tribal ID, they accept that for border crossings in Canada.
You know who could also help besides Kim is Ed. He goes into Canada. So
Yeah.
we got all the Canadian travelers. So I'm not saying no. I mean, if everyone wants to have it in Canada next year, and we can get the funding and Kim's on board, let's do it. But I'm just throwing out the actual
Maybe
concern.
we should talk about like asking her if it would be logistically feasible in a year. And if not, then we can just put it off and maybe we can just come up with a plan B in the meantime. I think like somewhere in the Black Hills would be cool for next year. Maybe we can talk to Indian Collective. They're building a new building. I mean, we could host it in Rapid. It wouldn't be like ideal, but or we could ask them if they have any suggestions. I don't know how you all feel about that, but it seems to me that like people are concerned about accommodations that have like air conditioning and things like that. And I think that's totally reasonable. But it also limits, you know, some of the places that we can go. We can't go like too far into the hills, you know, because a lot of those places just, you know, that would facilitate a group environment like this would not, you know, would not be helpful. But then if we did it at Indian Collective, there wouldn't be the option to like lodge there, because they don't have, you know, lodging, so people would have to figure out housing or hotels or Airbnbs or whatever. And this time of year, you're going to be paying like $250 to $500 a night for a hotel. So something to consider. Anywhere in the Black Hills pretty much is really difficult.
Yeah, I think if we want to do it in the Black Hills, we need to be off season for sure. And you know, this time of year isn't an awesome time as more of our people are in ceremony this time of year. It's become more difficult to plan. So I don't think that we always have to have it in the summer, and it's not always been in the summer. They have had it in the fall before. So we could even look at that. I feel like we ought to at least go out to the Black Hills before we traipse to Canada. I don't know. Not that Oak Lake hasn't been out to the hills doing things, but it just seems like.
I like that idea too, because I really do think save the Canada trip for a big 30th anniversary, because that's like a huge accomplishment. So I think to take it somewhere big and like do it big on the 30th anniversary, I would suggest the 30th for Canada, and then plan something within South Dakota for our first in-person retreat since becoming our own 501c3.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good plan, because that allows us to plan for the 30th now, a little bit of overlapping planning that I think it would take.
We do have our next session. I just realized.
Oh God, it's 10:07. Sorry, everyone. All right. Doksha, see you in the next one. Go ahead and click the link, and we're going to be doing a publishing panel.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah.